Housing is in crisis, and it's engineered. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent just said, we may declare a national housing emergency in the fall.
The housing market is obviously very important in the U.S. We've got an affordability crisis, so we are really going to work on this housing affordability crisis. That's one of my big projects for the fall, along with several other branches of government.
But here's the irony. The same tariffs that broke housing are now being pitched as the solution. The numbers tell the story. In 2024, America started 1.36 million homes, the most in years. Yet fewer than 1 million new households were formed. So we're still 3.8 million homes short, the third largest gap since 2012. But here's what's crazy. 1.63 million expected Gen Z and millennial households didn't form because they literally couldn't afford to move out. That's 1/3 of Americans aged 18 to 34 living with parents, an 80-year high. So today we're unpacking three things: how tariffs quietly broke housing in the first place, what this emergency actually unlocks, and most importantly, what investors need to watch when Washington starts reshuffling the deck. So here's the setup, the big contradiction. Canadian lumber tariffs just exploded from 14.4% to 35.2% this year. So the breakdown is the Commerce Department doubled countervailing duties from 6.74% to 14.63% in July. These are extra tariffs that level the playing field for foreign imports so that American companies don't get undercut. Then you add the 20.56% anti-dumping tariff, and you get 35.2% total, the highest in decades. And the result? Framing lumber prices are up 5.8% year over year. Lumber futures are up 19.1%. And that's while housing demand is actually cooling. So Washington breaks it with tariffs, then wants credit for fixing it with emergency exemptions. That's not policy, that's theater. But here's the thing, the crisis is absolutely real. We gotta do something about it. I mean, 2024 construction versus formation, we built 1.36 million homes, but only 1 million households formed. Even at record building speeds, we're still losing ground. The 3.8 million home shortage isn't just numbers, it's millions of families priced out. And even worse, that 1.63 million in missing household formation represents hidden demand that makes the gap even deeper. And it's not evenly spread across the nation. I mean, if it's blowing up in your area, all that means is it's going down somewhere else or vice versa. That's kind of how averages in the math works. But the South, they could close their gap in 3 years. The Northeast, they're actually going backwards. And some Midwest markets need 41 plus years at current building rates. So yes, declaring an emergency makes sense. But the solution is where it gets interesting. Here's what emergency powers actually do. Under the National Emergency Act, declaring housing emergency gives Trump access to 137 statutory emergency powers. The translation here is bypass Congress on regulations, redirect federal funds, and override local zoning laws. And the three big mechanisms here: shortening the rules, so you cut permit wait times from 2 years to weeks. That unlocks 400,000 plus units stuck in regulatory limbo. The second, you get to fast track approvals. So environmental reviews that add 18 to 24 months, those are gone. And then fund redirections. $4.7 billion in community development block grants can be redirected overnight. And here's the historical precedent. Trump has already declared 9 national emergencies since January. This would be number 10. Emergency housing declarations happened during 2008 financial crisis, COVID eviction moratoriums, and 1930s depression programs that created the FHA. But here's where it gets nuts. Fed rate cuts during supply shortages don't help buyers. They hurt them. And so here's the math. The markets are pricing in a 91.5% chance that they're cutting the rates here in September. But in tight supply markets, each quarter point rate cut prices out 1.1 million more households rather than helping them. You see, lower rate cuts just fuel bidding wars. The current mortgage rate's right around 6.6%, still 3 times higher than the pandemic lows. So a Fed cut would move markets faster than any emergency declaration out of DC. So where does the money go? I mean, who really wins? Well, the big builders win. And the $991 million proof just dropped last month. This year, August, Berkshire Hathaway invested $991 million in home builders, $800 million in Lennar, $191 million in D.R. Horton. That's Warren Buffett making the biggest housing bet in Berkshire history. Why would he do that when he just told everyone don't invest in real estate back in May? Well, builder consolidation, it's accelerating. The top 10 builders now control 43% of the market share versus 29% pre-COVID. Emergency powers don't level the playing field. They tilt it further toward builders with land banks and regulatory capture advantages. Academic research shows that's worth a 14% valuation premium. Existing homeowners, you win. Their asset values hold or rise as new buyers get squeezed out. The first-time buyers, you lose. Emergency powers might speed up supply, but the Fed rate cuts will speed up demand even faster. So here's the institutional playbook. Here's how $100 billion plus housing allocations are positioning. So there's this supply side arbitrage. This is the first one. Builders with vertical integration and pre-permitted land become temporary monopolies. You see, if these emergency powers accelerate the approvals, they capture regulatory time value worth $23,000 plus per unit. That's how much they're saving in just time. Then there's the consolidation play. You've got Blackstone, Brookfield, and Starwood. They are land banking in regulatory bottleneck metros, places in cities where they can't build. But if emergency powers now override the local zoning, these land values and these zones, they could triple. And third, the rate cut hedge. Long duration housing debt becomes a negative convexity hedge if emergency policies normalize supply over the 7 to 10 year cycle it'll actually take to close the gap. So here's what you really need to think about. If you already own, this is pretty great. Faster appreciation, bigger asset values, and you're already inside the gate. If you're trying to buy, it may get harder. Fast. Emergency powers favor speed and scale. The market's about to reward builders who can navigate red tape, not families saving for down payments. And even with emergency powers, filling a 3.8 million home gap takes 7+ years. But the Fed rate cuts and regulatory fast tracking happen in months. And so guess which moves prices first? All right, you got 3 things to watch. Construction costs. They determine replacement costs and builder margins. Permit pipeline acceleration. Emergency moves could temporarily boost building. And then the Fed rate cuts. Mortgage rates dropping beats supply increasing every time. So here's the bottom line. Washington may declare victory for fixing a crisis they helped create. But here's what you probably want to get a grip with. I mean, this is reality. We could be looking at housing prices as cheap as they'll be for a very, very long time. I mean, think about it. $991 million Berkshire bet on builders. He knows something. Emergency presidential powers that bypass Congress. Fed rate cuts with 91.5% probability. And a 7-year construction timeline that can't keep up with demand. It can't keep up with the new housing formations. I know this is hard to believe, especially when prices feel impossible. But when policy, money printing, and supply constraints all point in the same direction, the math doesn't lie. And now that you're armed with that information, you got a choice. You either get crushed by this wave, or you pick up another property or two and enjoy the ride. Good or bad, right or wrong, love it or hate it. It's inevitable. The smart money isn't complaining about Washington's policies though. They're repositioning. Berkshire did it, Blackstone did it, institutional investors are doing it right now. So if you'd like some help with this, I pulled this video out here for you next. Because when the biggest wealth transfer in housing history is happening, you can either watch from the sidelines or you can get in the game. Let's get in. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.